Welcome to today's deep dive. Today we are exploring a stack of philosophical and, well, cognitive design notes.
Yeah, from a project called Reflective Humanism.
Right. And specifically, we're zeroing in on a single, really thought-provoking cognitive pattern they've identified. It's titled Thesis No.56.
Thesis 56, exactly. And our mission today isn't to, force a rigid conclusion on you.
No, not at all. It's more about mapping out a specific structure of how our minds actually interface with the world.
Just quietly observing the architecture of our own cognition.
Yeah. And to get us started, I actually recently heard an interesting idea in these notes that fundamentally challenges how we view our own intelligence.
It really does.
The premise is basically this. Maybe human beings don't actually understand things first and then adapt to them.
Right.
Maybe instead we simply get used to things first.
It's a profound shift in perspective. And yes, this happens quite often. I mean, we like to flatter ourselves as these highly rational creatures who analyze, comprehend, and then, carefully act.
But the core structural sequence from this material flips that completely around.
It completely flips it. The actual sequence we observe in human behavior is action leading to habit, which finally leads to understanding.
Okay, let's unpack this. I want to start with something highly relatable, something right out of the source material's observations.
Sure.
Think about the transition to smartphones.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right. If you are old enough to remember switching from a phone with a physical tactile keyboard.
Like a BlackBerry.
Exactly, like a BlackBerry. Switching from that to a flat glass slab. You remember the initial friction there?
Yeah, it was awkward at first.
Right, but you didn't sit down, study the internal schematics, read a comprehensive manual on capacitive touchscreens, or fully conceptualize the paradigm shift of the mobile internet before you turned it on.
No, of course not. You just picked it up.
You picked it up. You started swiping, tapping, making endless typos.
Letting your thumbs figure it out through sheer trial and error.
Exactly. You plunged into the action long before you had any real comprehension of the device's underlying technology, or even its eventual impact on your life.
What is fascinating here is that the exact same applies to social media, digital platforms, and now, increasingly, AI tools.
People just plunge in.
They do. They start clicking, scrolling, prompting, long before they comprehend the mechanics or the societal implications of what they're actually using.
Now, the project actually has a name for this visible behavior, right?
Yes, they call the phenomenon of using something without understanding it Thesis 50.
Thesis 50, so that's the entry point.
Right, it's the observable action when we face new technology. But what we're focused on today, Thesis No. 56, is the actual engine under the hood.
It's the cognitive structure explaining why we do this.
Exactly. It maps out the structural engine of getting used to things before understanding them.
So Thesis 50 is watching the person swipe awkwardly on their new phone. And Thesis 56 is looking at the gears turning inside their brain while they do it.
That is a great way to put it. Which brings us right to the structure of cognition itself.
Right, because the model lays this out in a very clear unidirectional flow. It begins with action,
You do something.
followed by repetition. You do it again and again.
And that repetition solidifies into habit.
The neural pathways are laid down, and the behavior just becomes automatic.
And then finally, at the very end of the chain, comes understanding.
Which is wild to think about.
No.
If this sequence holds true, then understanding is rarely the actual cause of our behavior.
No, it isn't. And this is a key aha moment in the text. It challenges our self-perception quite a bit.
We heavily rely on the belief that understanding is a tool we use to grasp the world beforehand.
Right, almost like a flashlight illuminating a dark room before we walk in.
But human cognition often follows this alternative pattern.
The argument here is that understanding is actually an explanation that appears afterward.
To rationalize an already established behavioral loop.
Precisely. The flashlight doesn't guide us into the room. We stumble around in the dark until we memorize the furniture layout.
And then we turn on the flashlight to confidently explain why we walk the way we do.
Wow.
Okay, if understanding is an explanation that appears afterward, then understanding can sometimes just be a story we tell ourselves.
After we've already adapted to a new reality, yes.
We don't use things because we understand them. We feel like we understand them simply because we're used to them.
We confuse our behavioral familiarity with intellectual comprehension. Yes, that's a very good way to describe it.
It's a subtle distinction, but a massive one.
It is. The source makes a bold claim here. Habit is not the result of thought. Habit actually forms the premise of thought.
The premise of thought.
Right. If you think about it visually, the habit creates the track, and thinking is the train riding over it later.
Redescribing the route as meaning or logic.
Exactly. The track had to be laid down first through repeated action.
The train of conscious thought is entirely dependent on where that track leads.
Your logic conforms to your habits, not the other way around.
The track and the train analogy perfectly captures how we retrofit our logic to match our behavior.
It does.
But it naturally raises a huge question about our cognitive wiring.
Uh.
Why are we built to act this way?
Right. What's the evolutionary benefit?
Exactly. If understanding is so secondary, what is the cognitive benefit of putting habit first?
It all comes down to the mechanics of the brain and energy conservation.
Because deep thinking, or what researchers call recursive processing, requires massive cognitive resources.
It is biologically expensive to think deeply. To survive and function efficiently in a highly complex, chaotic environment, the brain strongly prefers to automate repeated behaviors.
And this automation is what we call habit.
Right. By automating a response, the brain frees up its limited active processing power for immediate threats or novel situations.
So habits reduce the need for thinking.
Mm-hmm.
They're essentially cognitive shortcuts.
Exactly. Cognitive shortcuts. And the Reflective Humanism project contextualizes this within what they call our inner operating system.
The inner OS.
Right. In their model, human cognition has distinct functional layers. Layer 1 is the input layer.
Handling raw stimuli, immediate emotions, memory retrieval.
Yes. And then you have layer 2, which they call the default loop.
The reaction layer.
Yes. It is filled with automatic responses, fixed behavioral routes, and those cognitive shortcuts we just talked about.
And this default loop relies entirely on habits.
Entirely. The reason we lean so heavily on layer 2 is because the outside world is fast, non-linear, and constantly bombarding us with new information.
Right. If we had to consciously process every single input at layer 1 and logically reason our way through it before acting.
We would experience a phenomenon the text describes as transparent pain.
Transparent pain. That concept is crucial for understanding why we rush to form habits.
It describes the deep cognitive friction that occurs when our internal linear processing collides with the chaotic, nonlinear gradients of the outside world.
It's not physical pain, but a profound mental overwhelm. I think we've all felt transparent pain. Think about starting a new corporate job.
Oh, yes.
And being forced to use a massive, overly complex enterprise software system for the first time.
Where the interface is a mess.
The workflow is non-intuitive, nothing makes sense. Sitting there staring at the screen, trying to logically deduce how the software functions.
That feeling of mental paralysis.
The urge to just close the laptop and walk away. That is transparent pain.
It is the friction of the unknown, demanding cognitive energy you do not want to spend.
And to prevent that transparent pain, our inner OS forcefully defaults to layer 2.
It pushes us away from deep, exhausting comprehension and into automatic reactions.
It urges us to just act, repeat, and form a habit as quickly as possible.
In that software example, you stop trying to understand the system's architecture.
Right, you just memorize the specific sequence of clicks needed to file your report.
You build a habit to insulate yourself from the chaos, to stop feeling the friction of the unknown.
We insulate ourselves with habit. And then, once we're safe and comfortable inside that automated loop, we sit back and tell ourselves, ah, yes, I totally understand how this software works.
When in reality, we were just running away from cognitive overload and memorizing a survival route.
This is where it scales up dramatically.
It does.
So what does this all mean for us? If we take this out of the individual brain and apply it to society at large, the implications are massive.
They are.
If habits precede understanding for individuals, then massive social changes don't spread through collective understanding.
No, they spread through mass habit.
Which flips our traditional view of social evolution backward.
We usually assume a society changes when a critical mass of people finally gets it, when there is some collective epiphany or widespread educational breakthrough.
But this structural model suggests otherwise. A society changes when a critical mass of people simply gets used to a new way of acting.
People often feel they understand something on a societal level simply because they have become used to it.
What we often call societal understanding is really just a measure of how deeply we have formed a collective habit.
We mistake the depth of our familiarity for the depth of our comprehension.
If everyone is doing it and everyone is used to it, we collectively agree that we understand it.
And this perfectly applies to our current technological landscape, especially with something as pervasive, rapid, and complex as artificial intelligence.
Right. The source material applies this exact framework to AI, and it's perhaps one of the most vital insights we can extract from it.
The material doesn't view AI merely as a discrete tool you pick up for a specific task and then put down. They describe AI as an atmospheric field.
An environment,
Yes,
an atmosphere, like the weather.
exactly. You
Yeah.
interact with a tool like a hammer with specific intent, but you acclimate to an atmosphere automatically.
Think about how we are interacting with AI right now in our daily lives. We aren't just using it deliberately.
We are actively forming baseline habits with it as a constant environmental presence.
We're letting predictive text finish our sentences in emails.
We're allowing algorithmic feeds to sort our news and shape our entertainment.
We're tossing messy thoughts into chatbots and asking them to structure our thinking for us.
And we are doing all of this, laying down massive behavioral tracks long before we conceptually understand the interference it creates in our lives.
Interference. That word is used very deliberately in the context of an atmospheric field.
It refers to how AI subtly alters our cognitive processes. It shifts our sense of agency and changes our fundamental relationship with information gathering.
Because AI acts as an environment, we are adapting to its interference through habit first.
We are blindly adjusting to the temperature of the room.
So the societal understanding of what AI is actually doing to our cognition, our creativity, or our social structures, that will only arrive as a retrospective story.
And that story will be told by a society that has already deeply habituated to AI's presence.
We are laying down the tracks while the train is still at the station.
And we don't really know where the tracks are heading.
We just know we're laying them down really fast to avoid the friction of falling behind, to avoid the transparent pain of being obsolete or inefficient.
It highlights how vulnerable we are to our own adaptability.
If our brains are biologically designed to just get used to things to save energy, we can get used to almost anything without ever stopping to ask if it's actually beneficial for us.
Or, if we truly comprehend its mechanics, we can normalize incredibly complex, potentially disruptive systems simply by interacting with them repeatedly.
That vulnerability is exactly why exploring this cognitive structure is so valuable.
By recognizing that our inner OS is wired to prioritize habit over comprehension, we can introduce a moment of intentional friction.
The material calls this contemplation or recursion.
Yes, it is the act of pausing to look at our own layer 2 default loop in real time.
So when you catch yourself forming a new digital habit or relying on a new automated system, you can step back and ask, am I building this behavioral track intentionally because it serves me?
Or am I just avoiding transparent pain? Am I actually comprehending this tool, or am I just getting used to it?
It's about cultivating transparency in our own observation, rather than blindly trusting our retrospective rationalizations.
We have to be willing to admit when our understanding is just a well-worn groove of familiarity.
It completely reframes how we look at our certainties.
If habit truly precedes understanding, then the most vital question isn't necessarily what we believe we understand right now.
Because our current understanding might just be an echo of past behaviors we've already solidified.
Right.
That raises a deeply reflective question for you listening right now. What if many of the things in your life, things you firmly believe you understand with absolute clarity, are simply things you have just become highly used to?
Then perhaps the real question we should be asking ourselves as we move forward is, what new habits are we currently adapting to today?
What new automatic behaviors are we adopting right now with our devices, our interactions, and our AI environments?
Because, down the line, what kind of understanding will those unexamined habits eventually force us to create?
Look at your own daily routines, especially the ones involving your digital life and the platforms you interact with seamlessly. Where is the line between your genuine comprehension of these tools and your mere behavioral submission to them? Are you the architect of your understanding, or are you just the gardener of your habits? It's a subtle distinction, but as we've explored today, it changes everything about how we navigate the world. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Take a moment, step out of the habit loop, and we'll catch you next time.